I'm here at the table with Rowena Santos and Karthika Gobinath. We're going to be talking about some of the issues women face when running for politics. One of the major things all of us talked about was the comments made to us by various members of the public. So, Rowena, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I'm sure that you remember, the Brampton Board of Trade hosted a number of debates for all of the candidates who were running for city and regional councillor. And one of the things that I will never forget in this campaign were comments that were made on social media regarding my performance at that debate. There was one particular person whose name I will not say. You can check out on Facebook yourselves. He specifically said that, I gave good responses, I was smart and articulate, that I unfortunately mentioned my professional background too much, blah, 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 blah. But I did not win the debate because, did you see at the end, she flipped her hair? Like, what does flipping your hair have to do with any performance in a debate? I wanted to respond to that comment, but I didn't, because you're not supposed to take the bait, right? But I did share with my friends after that the reason why I flipped my hair was because literally it was in my face. I don't understand. Has that happened to you?
The things that I've come across, the flipping of the hair, that's how you should wear your hair, because my hair is natural, so it's curly all the time. But for the election, I had straightened it, and the amount of comments, oh, that's how you should wear your hair all the time now. How many men do you think get the comment of, oh, that's the shade of lipstick that you should be wearing. Oh, that haircut? That's definitely what you should be doing.
Or you were touching your beard too much during the debate.
Or, you really should suck in that stomach of yours. These are comments. These are genuine comments. Karthika, what are some of your experience been?
When I was running for the Green Party of Canada in 2015, the 42nd general election, I have mixed emotions within the community. I was quite surprised in regards to the reactions of certain members in the community, especially with the fact that often I was asked, you're in your 20s, how come are you married? How come you don't have a baby yet?
Yep.
How come you're not focusing on other priorities in life? And why are you doing all this volunteer work and focusing on the community rather than yourself? It doesn't make sense. It's as if I have to be at a certain place in my time as a woman rather than doing all the political work that I was doing within my community. And it was I have to prove myself to the community in terms of, okay, why am I doing this? What am I going to do after this? It's a matter of always constantly proving myself. And then it was more of okay, they have certain stereotypes for women too, and I find that they focus often on the physical appearance of a woman, how a woman talks, more so stereotypes that are predetermined for a female.
Which is interesting, right?
Yes.
Because when, to your point about, not many women who were actually elected, it's even harder to get women to run sometimes. And to your point, when it's only men that you see represented in elected positions, there is a natural, I will call it, there's a natural perception that women don't belong there.
Right.
That women, and when there is a perception around, which still exists today, that women belong at home, that women are in charge of the children, that women should look a certain way, then in certain cultural circles, that is the natural questions that they ask. It's similar to, if you have a young girl, to the young girl, the first comment is usually, oh, that's a pretty dress you're wearing. Yes. Your hair looks so beautiful like that. Oh, you're wearing nail polish. And for boys, usually the comments are, what sport are you playing? What sport does he like?
What are you going to be when you grow up?
What are you going to be
studying in school?
What are you saying, right?
Those are
versus
things
your first comment to girls is based on appearance.
Yeah.
And because of all this, often whatever you want to say to the community in regards to your position on a policy or speak about your platform, it's often avoided or overlooked
Gets lost in
transition because of the fact that these other variables play effect when deciding to vote rather than the important aspects of why I'm there at their door. So I've got mixed messages like, hey, I'm going to vote for you because you're so beautiful.
Yes.
So I'm like,
I think
why don't you
every
focus?
one of us has gotten that.
So like, why not focus on the policies rather than how I look or how I'm talking? Like, focus on the important part to make that informed decision.
But honestly speaking, what the very first time you got that response, I'm going to vote for you because you're gorgeous.
How do you respond
How do
to
you
that?
respond? Like, how did you respond?
Wow, thank you so much. Did you know that blah, blah, blah in Brampton?
Yeah, how did you respond?
I responded the same way. I was like, thank you, and then focused on the policies and said, yeah, you might want to look into this because they had certain concerns as residents, and I'm like, you might want to look into these policies, and perhaps make an informed decision before you vote, rather than looking at other aspects.
The best comment that I'm sure you've all had is, oh, you know what? You're so smart. You're not just a pretty face.
Yes, I got that too.
What is that?
How many men do you think, oh my gosh, you're a handsome man? I'm going to vote for you just because you're gorgeous.
I think my teammate Paul Vicente got that a few times at the door. I think like he really took that as a compliment.
But at the same time, you know, those are the things that were easy to laugh off. I'm pretty sure you had some that you were like, why am I doing this?
Yes, because for example, in the world of social media, for example, a lot of those comments, whether they're positive or related to your looks or related to what you think, a lot of those comments happen uncensored.
Uncensored. People are finding it so easy to hide behind social media.
Yes. So we were talking earlier, about our Facebook pages. And I think our friend of ours, Cheryl, who invited me here today, sent me a message on Facebook. And I didn't open it because I never check my Facebook messages. Because literally when I open it, there are these random strangers who are saying, hi, are you single? They send me pictures. They send me, inappropriate things and like comments. Yep. So I don't open it.
Yeah, that's why.
So anyone who's trying to get a hold of me on Facebook, please don't try to get a hold of me on Facebook. I apologize. I don't check my Facebook messages.
Mine is very heavily censored, so most of those messages I don't get because of that exact reason. I can't deal with it anymore.
But what
we shouldn't have to.
I know, and
we shouldn't have to deal with things like that.
And the difference is with men, right? Because Councillor Vicente or Paul Vicente, I gave him access to my Facebook page to check my messages because I didn't want to do it, and he was so surprised to see the amount of Facebook messages I was getting unprompted from these random strangers of men.
Honestly, this is an issue. This is a problem, and when it came to knocking on doors, you think it's only social media. It's not really only social media. I think one of my scariest parts of knocking on doors and why I refused to go by myself, I always had to have somebody on the same street with me, is because I had a gentleman open the door in his underwear and invited me into his house.
Oh my
God. I was just like, okay, I'm Karla Bailey, introducing who I am, talking about my policies. But he really wanted me to come in. And I was just like, you know what? My partner's on the road, and unfortunately cannot come in at this time.
So, these are all the things that women experience that are very different from men in terms of running for office. And now we could see why it is that fewer women actually put their names forward.
But it's not only that. It's when you look at how many women actually put their name forward and how many women drop out of the race midway. It's really serious, because when you think about women who are threatened, whether it's through violence or verbal abuse, because they just couldn't take it anymore, they're, what's the word I'm looking for? Intimidated to drop out the race. And I'm gonna say, I ran twice, and I've had phone calls from people who try to encourage me to drop out of the race. Directly talking about dropping out or encouraging me to drop out of the race. Now, none of them were women that tried to do it with me. It was always men.
Interesting.
For me, it was more so of racism. I wouldn't say that one specific, like we have 4 parties in the federal election at that time, and I wouldn't say a specific party is more racist than the other. There's racism that exists within all parties. And while door knocking as well, I had people slam the door on my face. Since the Green Party of Canada was very, not that popular compared to the other parties, it was quite difficult to campaign. It's like running a race without fuel, like driving a car without actual fuel and keep going. But what was important to me was voicing the concerns and issues that I had and the residents had in Brampton West. And I was quite happy to run the race with 3 other strong women of different cultural backgrounds, running for the Green Party, running for the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, and NDP, and they all have the qualifications to do so. They all bring different values to the and perspective to the election in itself, and I was quite proud of that because I know at the end of the day, one female will be elected.
Right, and that was one thing I'm always looking at. How many women are running in this election for each ward? You know,
and this is all women of color, which I was quite proud of, and I found that even within the party to like. For example, if you were to be put forward to speak to the media about the platform or represent the party, it's often overlooked at, and they would let a woman who's not of color represent the party more than a woman who is of color.
Which presents us. Look at this. Right there. Represent.
To be in front of the camera and get that screen time, it's very difficult unless you voice your opinion and say, hey, I want to do this. It's not often where your name gets thrown in the hat to go and represent the party. So it's often more so constantly trying to prove yourself that you can do this. And it was quite difficult for me in the sense that it wasn't the men that were putting me down, it was more so the females that were putting me down. Okay, you know, why are you doing this? You know, once you have that baby, you don't need to go back into politics. Or you have that baby now. I have a son who's 20 months old, and they're like, okay, you're not going back into politics. I'm like, no, this is the start of everything. My son is the start of me going back into politics.
I think you're touching on a really good point here. And how many times the question was, how old are your children? What are you going to do with them?
Who's going to take care of them?
Yeah, it's like, are you saying that because I have children, my brain is no longer working, no longer functional?
If anything, women who have children should be stepping up even more. Right? Because we have a different perspective when it comes to policy, when it comes to thinking about the future. You know, not to say that dads don't have that perspective as well, but certainly, you know, things related to healthcare and childcare and future generations, the environment, we have a direct connection and link with our kids, and which is a different level of connection than men. Like they were literally in our bodies. These children.
But it's such a large topic. Sometimes one of the things that we're really struggling with as women is when there's so many men at a table and there is no women there representing, then the conversation is completely different because they're incapable of understanding, okay, women also need this. So we're thinking about community safety. All right, let's get more police in. Okay, gotcha. But what about preventative measures like after school programs? Give the children something to do. You know, women think differently than men. That's why it's really important to have women at the table. Men can't speak for women. Women can't speak for men. That's why we need a healthy mix.
That's right.
Just to add to that, we can't have a certain set of men representing the whole population of men. So, for example, we can't have a specific set of women representing marginalized ethnic women in the community.
Right.
So, in order to get those values at the table, in order to get that voice at the table, we need a mix of women from all different backgrounds who share that perspective to add to the conversation and make informed decision as a community.
The conversation becomes that much richer when you have a diverse group of people engaging in that conversation. So if you have a bunch of Caucasian men sitting at the table, and
No offense.
No
to all
offense.
of our Caucasian brothers.
and a bunch of or a mixture of Caucasian men and Caucasian women at the table. Yes, there are women there, but they have different experiences and they bring different things to the table than women of color. So that's why you want to have diversity in your community that represents the community.
I'm going to give you an example. So just last Wednesday at City Hall, our council unanimously passed a motion brought forward by my fellow councillor Charmaine Williams around providing daycare at City Hall for parents and moms who want to engage in the conversation, and also for councillors like myself, a single mom, and Charmaine, who has 5 children, who in the evening, we're always stressed out about where we're going to have our kids. What better way than to provide that service at City Hall to allow parents to engage in heated debate? Lately, our council meetings have been going on until 10 o'clock at night. Some of that is our fault. Anyway.
But it's really important. It's really important to provide things like childcare.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure that everyone is able to have their voices heard, right? Canada historically has had women in politics for a long time, but we still haven't reached parity. The closest we come is in Alberta. In 2015, NDP reached almost parity at 47%, right, of women in their party. So when we're looking at it, we haven't reached there. We're still fighting and we're still struggling. But that's why we keep doing it. I remember when I was thinking about running, because every woman has different experiences. We're thinking about running. I know the tipping point came for me when I was speaking to an older woman in our community, and she's like, "Karla, you can't not run." I was like, "Why not?" And she's like, "We need to have as many role models."
That's right.
For our girls in our community. And that was the reason why. She's like, if you don't do it and you keep saying, everybody keeps saying somebody else can do it, then nobody will do it, right? We all have to do our part.
Yes.
What made you decide you're going to actually run?
So it was my son. Yes, and quite honest, so everything always comes down to my son and his future and the city that I want him to live in. But also, there was, quite honestly, an opportunity in the community because the 2 incumbents were retiring. And that makes the chances for people like us a little bit more of a level playing field, especially if you're not running up against an incumbent. But I will say that one of the biggest challenges when women decide to run is the finances of it, because it takes money to run a campaign. And the other interesting statistic with relation to women and inequality is the fact that for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes about 79 cents?
It's a little
Something
less
like
than
that, 75 cents?
Yeah.
So on average, women financially in campaigns already are at a disadvantage. And that is another barrier. So for all the people out there who want to support women in politics, make sure you make a donation to those candidates.
It's true. What made you decide you're going to finally run when you ran?
I was frustrated. I would say there's issues that I was going through at that time. I just finished my master's in public policy and law at that moment, and certain issues were pressing and of a concern for me at that time. And it was more so about tuition fees, it was about underemployment, unemployment, and the lack of affordable housing. I grew up in a community where it was like marginalized, and it was in the metro community housing area. So I know the issues around that in regards to funding and the lack of attention to these issues. Sometimes if we talk about a female issue, people don't want to listen. But if we tie that to another issue like
But
mental
a lot
health,
of the times they say it's a female issue, but
Yes.
it's not really a
It's
female
not, no.
issue. It's a community issue.
Yes.
So tuition is not a female
No,
issue.
no.
It's a community issue.
Yes.
Childcare is not a female issue.
Yes,
it's a
community issue.
Yes.
So when you really look at female issues, how many of them are really female issues? It's a lot less than you actually think.
I agree with that. And for me, it was like when I was running, I find that the frustration that I had was there's a lack of mentorship for females, especially in leadership positions.
Yes.
And if you're running for public office, it's a matter of who's supporting you and who's guiding you through that process. It's a scary process. You're coming out there and being in front of the camera, doing debates. It's just a different world compared to what you actually live in. So it's quite challenging and it's quite rewarding at the same time. And I find that for me, it was just I just decided to run because of certain issues that I was passionate about, and I was sitting on various boards, serving nonprofit organizations, working with women, children, and youth. And for me, certain things mattered, and I was like, okay, I'm going to put my name forward, and that's what I did. And then I just came home, and I'm like, hey, I'm running for office, and my husband's like, what? Whoa, you're what? And I had to explain it to him, and then certain people came forward and supported me, but the lack of funding and the lack of support, it was quite challenging for me to run a campaign without any resources. So whatever money I got, I put towards print literature, and I went and knocked on every single door, and I was hungry for that contact with my community. I went to all the debates, I went to everything and anything that I could get there and talk about my platform. And for me, certain media outlets were quite supportive, like the Tamil community in Scarborough. I grew up in Scarborough and I was running in Brampton, but they called me over to Scarborough and they gave me that opportunity to speak in front of the camera and raise that awareness and that platform with the other members in other parts of the communities. And same with the Punjabi community in Brampton, they did the same thing. They were more focused on the other three parties, but they're like, you know what, we'll give you an opportunity to talk about your platform, because the medias weren't, certain outlets weren't, media outlets weren't inviting us as the Green Party, because they're like, you're not even a party, so
Right.
why are we having you in front of the camera?
So the reality is that women, and especially, I did it again. It was just in my face. Is that women, and especially, women, people of color, we have to, the reality is, we have to work harder.
Yes.
The reality is we have to work harder.
We have to do
and
our
work smarter.
homework, and we have to be prepared. And despite all of the challenges and all the questions and the fact that we are at a disadvantage, we still have to stand up.
We still have to
because
stand up. Yep.
of the future, and if we want proper representation and those voices at the leadership tables, who is going to do it?
That's right. You know what? There's a lot of, we could talk all day. We could talk all day, but it's time to wrap it up. Now, if you're thinking of running, please reach out to any woman that's ran or any woman in office, because women tend to want to support other women. And there's organizations like YWCA Canada who runs Elect More Women campaigns, and Equal Voice Canada who will support women that want to run for office. So, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Rowena. Thank you,
Anytime.
Karthika.
Thank you.
And that's it for today at the table.